How's it going, everybody? I'm gonna be doing something a little different this time. Um, Before we dive into the game, I'm gonna just start off with some updated figures. So, as you guys are, I'm sure you know, there's a genocide going on in um, against Palestinians. So, as of yesterday, I'm going to give the updated figures on death toll and everything. It's going to, and then we're going to read a quick, a very brief history on the conflict between Palestine and Israel from an article from Al Jazeera. And I'll be posting all this stuff in the chat. There's also a protest Saturday, January 13th in DC. There's probably local activist groups that will be busing people near you. Just look around, do some research, find some local activist groups. If you need help finding them, just reach out to me. I'm sure I could find some within your area, and I could probably help you out finding activity, political activity in your local area. So to begin, since October 7th, at least, well, this figure's probably higher now, but yesterday it was 21,978 people have been killed. So that's probably well over 22,000 today, with 9,100 of them being children. And this is in Gaza. There's over 57,697 missing, mostly missing under the rubble. And then since October 7th, at least 319 people have been killed by Israel, including 83 children in the West Bank, where Hamas doesn't even operate and it doesn't have control. There are at least 3,800 missing in the West Bank as well. 70% of homes in Gaza have been completely destroyed by Israel, despite what the state media has been saying from Israel and some Western media news outlets. Northern Gaza has not been cleansed. There are still people there. There are videos of Palestinians being blindfolded and kicked into pits of tires and, ended in the pits. It's very, very hard to watch. So there have been a lot of videos and pictures of these mass killings. I have one saved on my phone. I don't like watching it. It's just I have to save it because I know that social media takes these things down. In fact, I'm kind of running a risk opening up my streaming career, or not even career, that's stupid to say, but I just started streaming, and there's a good chance that just talking about all this could get me in trouble due to the censorship of pro-Palestine sentiment. So there's no count on the wildlife that's been killed there. There's plenty of video of pets and cats, like pets like cats and dogs, all either being killed or terrified of the bombings, some with bad injuries, and yet Palestinians are still trying to take care of them and feed them and everything. So every so often I'm going to be posting updates on these things, and trying to give information on anything that I can. My nose. So if you have any questions, don't feel free to reach out. So I'll post the link for the article in my chat, and then I will post the figures as well before we start reading, so everyone has a chance to get onto the article to read along. And if you have any questions about the conflict, like even if you are unsure, like, I mean, you should know which side to take at this point, but if you've just been kind of blind about the whole thing and just have questions, I would be happy to answer and help, but all of that must be in good faith. If I can tell that you're not coming at me in good faith, and I can tell that there is zero ability to change your mind, or you're just really dug in, I'm not going to entertain it. And the more you push the genocidal narratives and Zionist narratives, the quicker you will be banned and removed from chat. So before I go into this history, I want to make sure that everyone knows what Zionism is. Zionism is the religious and political beliefs. You don't even have to be Jewish to be a Zionist, as Biden says himself. But it's the belief that Jewish people are only safe if there is a colonial ethnic state that takes over Palestine and expels the Palestinians from that land. That's what an ethnic state is. It prioritizes one race or religion, especially a theocratic ethno-state, which that's what Israel's trying to be. It'll prioritize the rights of those people over the rights of others. That's why you see plenty of videos of Israeli settlers going in and taking Palestinians' homes and actually being not only protected by the state of Israel, but armed by the state of Israel. And this has been a project since even before 1900s, but in this article we are going to be starting at 1917. There is also a website where you can generate emails quickly, pre-written emails to your local representatives to demand an end to aid for Israel, and just pretty much stop sending military aid and stop sending taxes there, and to demand a permanent ceasefire. I'll be posting that in the chat as well. One moment. Let me copy and paste that, and then we'll start on the article. Alright. So, we'll skip down to where it starts. In 1917, the Israeli-Palestinian issue goes back nearly a century, when Britain, during World War I, pledged to establish a national home for the Jewish people in Palestine under the Balfour Declaration. British troops took control of the territory from the Ottoman Empire at the end of October 1917. On October 31st, 1917, British forces conquered Palestine from the Ottoman Turks, ending 1,400 years of Islamic rule over the region. Before the British mandate in Palestine, Jews made up around 6% of the total population. So before Israel was even created, there was already people there. And on top of that, it was indigenous people. They had been there for 1,000 years at least. Jewish immigration to Palestine. A large-scale Jewish migration to Palestine began, accelerated by Jewish people fleeing Nazism in Europe. Between 1918 and 1947, the Jewish population in Palestine increased from 6% to 33%. Palestinians were alarmed by the demographic change and tensions rose, leading to the Palestinian Revolt from 1936 to 1939. Meanwhile, Zionist organizations, Zionist, the definition that we talked about earlier, the belief that Jewish people need a colonial theocratic ethno-state over the land of Palestine, at the expense of the indigenous population. They believe that they are indigenous to there because the Holy Book says Abraham traveled there 3,000 years ago, but he would have came from what many experts say would be modern-day Iraq. But that doesn't mean that they should go to Iraq and start colonizing that area either. We should not be making policies based off of things that happened 3,000 years ago, and we should not be making policies nobody should be making policies based on holy books. So back to the article. Meanwhile, Zionist organizations continued to campaign for a homeland for Jews in Palestine. Armed Zionist militias started to attack the Palestinian people, forcing them to flee. Zionism, which emerged as a political ideology in the late 19th century, called for the creation of a Jewish homeland. And this is very similar to our Manifest Destiny ideology during the colonization of America, or colonialism of America, where we believed it was our God-given right to expand westward, and that was at the expense of the indigenous people. So we're literally watching colonialism in modern time, the most documented genocide in history. So, an estimated 376,415 Jewish immigrants, mostly from Europe, arrived in Palestine between 1920 and 1946, according to British records. So, the UN partition plan, as violence ravaged Palestine, the matter was referred to the newly formed United Nations in 1947. The UN adopted Resolution 181, which called for the partition of Palestine into Arab and Jewish states, handing over about 55% of the land to Jews, to the Israelis. Arabs were granted 45% of the land, while Jerusalem was declared a separate internationalized territory. So they, for their own homeland, they weren't even during a compromise, they weren't even given half. They were actually given a little less than half. And then, following the end of World War II, the newly formed United Nations proposed a plan that would grant, This plan was never implemented on the ground. The city is currently divided between West Jerusalem, which is predominantly Jewish, and East Jerusalem, with a majority of Palestinian population. Israel captured East Jerusalem after the Six-Day War in 1967, along with the West Bank, a step not recognized by the international community. The old city in occupied East Jerusalem holds religious significance for Christians, Muslims, and Jews. It is home to Al-Aqsa, I'm going to butcher this and I apologize. Al-Aqsa Mosque compound, which is known to Muslims as Al-Haram al-Sharif and to Jews as Temple Mount. In 1981, the UN designated it a World Heritage Site. So the Nakba. Leading up to Israel's birth in 1948, more than 750,000 Palestinians were ethnically cleansed from their homes by Zionist militias. This mass exodus came to be known as the Nakba, or catastrophe. A further 300,000 Palestinians were displaced by the Six-Day War in 1967. Israel declared the annexation of East Jerusalem in 1980, but the international community still considers it an occupied territory. Palestinians want East Jerusalem as the capital of their future state. The Oslo Accords. In 1993, the Palestinian leader Yasser Arafat and Israeli Prime Minister Yitzhak Rabin signed the Oslo Accords, which aimed to achieve peace within 5 years. It was the first time the two sides recognized each other. A second agreement in 1995 divided the occupied West Bank into three parts, Area A, B, and C. The Palestinian Authority, which was created in the wake of the Oslo Accords, was offered only limited rule on 18% of the land as Israel effectively continued to control the West Bank. Israeli settlements and checkpoints. However, the Oslo Accords slowly broke down as the Israeli settlements, Jewish communities built on Palestinian land in the West Bank, grew at a rapid pace. The settlement population in the West Bank and East Jerusalem grew from approximately 250,000 in 1993 up to 700,000 in September this year. About 3 million Palestinians live in the occupied West Bank and East Jerusalem. The building of Israeli settlements and a separation wall on occupied territories has fragmented the Palestinian communities and restricted their mobility. About 700 road obstacles, including 140 checkpoints, dot the West Bank. About 70,000 Palestinians with Israeli work permits cross these checkpoints in their daily commute. Settlements are considered illegal under international law. The UN has condemned settlements, calling it a big hurdle in the realization of a viable Palestinian state as a part of the so-called two-state solution. The blockade of Gaza. Israel imposed a blockade on Gaza in 2007 after the Hamas group came to power. The siege continues till date. Israel also occupies the West Bank and East Jerusalem, the territories of Palestinians want to be part of their future state. And Israel imposed a total blockade on the Gaza Strip on October 9th, cutting its supplies of electricity, food, and fuel in the wake of a surprise Hamas attack inside Israel. At least 1,200 people were killed in that attack. However, it's come out recently that a large portion of those people killed were from friendly fire from Israeli forces. I will find those articles as soon as I can and post those in a second. Today, about 5 million Palestinians live in Gaza. The West Bank and East Jerusalem, and 1.6 million Palestinians are citizens of Israel. This makes about half of their total population. The other half lives in other countries, including Arab countries. There are about 14.7 million Jews around the world today, of which 84% live in Israel and the United States. The rest live in other countries, including France, Canada, Argentina, and Russia. And then there's two graphs on that website showing where everybody is. And then the rest is graphs on that. Let me find